Hello Odoo enthusiasts, welcome to the Odoo experience in 2021. My name is Tobias Hammeke and I'm the CEO and founder of OBS. Today I'm here with Dr. Thomas Koliva. He's heading the project of one of our biggest implementations at the moment, a multinational company with about 3,000 employees worldwide. Well, before we go into the details, let me introduce Odoo Business Solutions.
Congratulations on winning the award for Best Partner of Europe.
Thank you.
So, as a Best Partner, can you tell me something more about your business philosophy?
We try to focus really on standard, on configuration possibilities, which are awesome in Odoo already. We want to implement Odoo as cost efficient as possible. We focus only on Odoo, and Odoo and integration into other software. We do manufacturing companies, sales, e-commerce, we have IT companies, we have service companies. So actually, from the sector perspective, we are quite broad.
So we have a very close collaboration with the partners, and if they weren't so willing to support us the way they are doing, we couldn't have done it so quickly.
Welcome Thomas, today here in Olpe, for having you here with this interview. You are heading the department Process Engineering and IT. Previously you had various positions, C-level positions in various companies, and as well you have quite some experience in implementing ERP systems like SAP or Microsoft or others. So thanks for having you here. I would like to know a bit, before you got into Odoo, why have you been really looking for a new system? Which criteria were really important for you?
Well, our company is a group of companies with international business in many countries all over the world. And the group itself has a huge growth in the last few years. So ERP system was not up to date we are using today, and that's why we are looking for a new system. And so we came more or less to Odoo. Before that we had checked some other systems.
Well, how did you get to know Odoo? Because Odoo is not the brand like SAP nowadays. So how did you get to?
Yeah, true. It was more or less by accident. So we got information from a business partner, indeed, and he told us, check Odoo, and that sounds interesting, and it's very flexible, and so on and so forth. So that was the beginning. Yeah.
Okay. And well, then almost 1 year ago we started our discussions. We started with a proof of concept, which we then have done. How was this proof of concept idea beneficial to support your decision? I think it was a 2-month approach.
Yeah, that was really important for the project in many aspects. First of all, it can gain trust to both the product and the partner. And we organized the proof of concept together with a huge team. So we did inform all parts of the company, production, development, sales, purchasing, and all departments were included in this proof of concept. So at the end we were able to make a decision together. Yes, we want to go this way, and that could be the right system for us.
Did you look as well into other software at the same time, or was it a proof of concept only done with Odoo?
Yeah, we did. We had contact with other systems, but not in this depth.
Okay. And then, after the proof of concept, we started actually immediately, more or less, in the project. So it was obviously successful, as it is quite often. So what would you say made you to take that quick decision, and what were the most convincing features of Odoo? Where would you see that really convinced us?
Well, there are a lot of things we were very positive about. Of course, there's a cost aspect. Yeah? We checked the big competitors, the big players, and from cost side, there's a much better price-performance ratio. Second, the high flexibility of the system, because we do have some special features on our company, and we do have some special processes we have to mirror in the system, and that's much more difficult and expensive in other systems. So that was a big point. Another big point was the easy usability. That's for sure a big point for Odoo.
And now, in total, you have now more or less 1 year experience with Odoo. You are very much in detail in the system yourself and driving, so you really can evaluate. What would you think, what would you say are the real strengths of Odoo, especially if we consider a bit the future development? So what are the strengths by really looking into the details? And of course as well, what could be better, what could be developed, or where are the missing gaps? As I said, the usability and the flexibility, that's for sure one of the strengths. And the second point is, and I was really positive surprised about to learn this in the beginning of the project, the variety of apps you can include, and also already what is already in the starting package. Comparing with the large market player, Odoo is more than an ERP, and SAP, for instance, can be more than an ERP. Mm-hmm. That's cut a long story short. That's the main difference. So you spoke a bit about the strengths. Where would you see potentials of Odoo for the future especially, and where do you see probably as well still gaps in comparison to an SAP R3 or something?
Okay, if Odoo would develop some things in accounting and as well as in production module, then I think the gap will be closed, and it is possible to close it. We found some things to develop, but with a partner together it is possible. But from standard we missed some aspects, especially regarding accounting. Yes,
and we've seen that as well. Odoo Standard has advanced over the past years quite a bit, but in comparison to an R3, there's still functionality missing. Over the last year, we have developed certain functions. So I think we are fine here, and we can support this project with our adaptations. You mentioned SAP. You have various experiences with SAP R3, Business One, for some companies. What other aspects would you see in that if you compare those?
In general, this comparison is not easy for sure. SAP is a kind of a super tanker with a huge capacity, and I would call Odoo the speedboat, fast and agile. And for us as a medium-sized enterprise, velocity, speed, being agile is the question, and that's our goal, to work like this. And we found it much better than in the market leaders.
Okay, that's cool, because of course we have quite an ambition as well to drive Odoo further into the market against as well players like SAP. Let's speak about the implementation partner. I'm not thinking that, I'm not asking you for a rate now or something, but the integration partner is key for the success of such a project. So what were important criteria for you to choose the right partner? I think that's as well a very important decision in the process.
That's absolutely true, and There was one point for OBS as a strategic partner for us. Of course, the geographical situation. Beside all Teams or Zoom meetings, I think the personal contact in the team is absolutely necessary. So that was one point. Second point is OBS shows us excellent references and a very convincing team, covering all aspects of the software. So these were the main criteria.
Well, beside all these aspects, as you are an international organization with more than 50 locations worldwide, how do you? What is there important to consider in regard to partner?
Yes, that's another important point speaking for Odoo. Of course, we have the subsidiaries, international production, as well as sales subsidiaries, and finally we have to integrate them all in the system. So we need local partners for the integration. It's nearly impossible to organize it all from the headquarters. So you need a team in the different countries, and that means from Indonesia to US, from China to Mexico, and so on. Different kind of book of accounting, there's different languages, blanks, and all these things are different, so you need a local team. And from Odoo, we learned that there is a network, international network of partners. OBS is part of this network with some own stuff in different countries. And yeah, that was another big point for us.
Yeah. Actually, we drive that further, this internationalization. So with a quite huge partner base in the future as well to support these kind of projects. Thank you very much. And now, of course, we are able to answer your questions. Thank you.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this Q&A session. Thank you, Tobias, for this presentation. It was very insightful. Are you ready to tackle some questions?
Of course.
And received quite a few of them. We're going to start with the first one asked by Yusuf. It wasn't very clear the weaknesses or areas of improvement. Could you maybe talk more on that?
Okay, probably the weaknesses and area of improvements of Odoo was meant because I related to those. Well, in comparison to bigger software, Odoo has a couple of areas to work on, as Dr. Koleva mentioned as well, like the finance area. And we have done, especially if you speak, of course, to bigger customers, and we have done a couple of modules that well, will fill this gap. And well, there are not far other areas. The BI, probably business intelligence, is something big corporations look into a bit different systems there. But I think yeah, all the other apps were in Odoo are quite competitive.
All right, perfect. And do you also work on migrations for Odoo community?
Well, we actually don't do community. In the past, there was always a discussion with customers whether to implement enterprise or community edition of Odoo. Now, at least, we don't have that discussion anymore. So we mainly focus on or only implement Odoo Enterprise. But of course, if a customer would come to us and would ask for a community edition, we could speak about that, but we don't want to do that. Actually, we like to focus on enterprise, and that's what we do. And actually, if you look at the pricing a bit and the value that the Odoo Enterprise is delivering, very often the community doesn't make really sense. The enterprise edition is worthwhile going.
All right, perfect. And Victor asked, which are the key project aspects to keep in mind when migrating to Odoo?
Well, that differs a lot amongst projects. So smaller projects, smaller customers, it's of course far easier to migrate into Odoo. Odoo has a very nice tool to onboard them and so on. bigger customers, of course, in general, I mean, whether they go to Odoo or to SAP or to other systems, you have a different key aspects to work on. Well, in Odoo specifically, it is probably a bit, if you get into bigger companies, the political situation and as well the branding comes in place there, that like users don't know Odoo, so they need to all like convinced about Odoo. They get convinced quite easy when they really work with the system, but then management that doesn't want to get involved with the software, don't know the name, and then you get as well in the project, you might get hurdles and say, well, look, SAP is the brand, would be easier to go for there, but Odoo is the better solution. So that is something for Odoo specifically. Well, and then otherwise, I mean, Odoo is delivering a lot of tools, but migration makes easier, and therefore there's no other specific areas to tackle on, I would say.
All right, and about the projects that you've handled so far, because of course you have an extensive experience as a Odoo partner, so you've handled many different kinds of projects. So which would be the major differences you would say between the smaller projects with the bigger ones?
Well, smaller projects, especially in Odoo, we can go live in weeks or months. And of course, in smaller projects, you often speak to the managing director or the owner that you have convinced before on Odoo, and then you don't have big political issues normally. But if you go into bigger projects like the one we discussed with Dr. Kuleva, we of course have to consider the political environment, and we have to convince the customer on various areas during the project as well. So we have to constantly convince them, and therefore we are very lucky with this customer because the core team is very much convinced on Odoo, so that we did during the proof of concept and then during the start of the project. And now what we are doing is we go as well into more and more into the organizations and convince the employees there. And of course, we have to bear in mind that big organizations, like the one we discussed, they have 26, 27 bigger locations worldwide. And of course, there you have to have take care of the political situation in each of these locations. So we cannot build 26, 27 Odoo systems. It has to be finally one Odoo system. And the major difference between a small and a big implementation is the big implementation, you have to consider other aspects. It's not only the software, it's more the organization, the political environment, and so on you have to consider. And therefore, it's completely different. In small projects, you just focus on Odoo. Odoo is convincing. You go into the onboarding with the people, easy in comparison. But big organizations work different. And this situation we have to consider, and as Odoo is growing from smaller companies into the bigger ones, especially as well people working with Odoo, our team, we have to educate in a way to work with bigger corporations. That's one of the major aspects, I would say.
Oh, right, great. And specifically for this project, were you faced with a lot of resistance to change on an internal level, I want to say?
At the moment, not, fortunately, because as said, the core team is very convinced and they bring it to the organization as well. We struggle a bit more with different requirements or ideas amongst the organization that we have to bring together and try to bring that in line in order to have finally one global system. We will see over the course of the next years, it's a multi-year project, if we get into this resistancy. I don't really think that it's such a big risk that we really have a problem with the entire project, because the core team is really convinced on Odoo, and with this core team, I think we can manage that and implement it as well. We have some people, of course, that know this kind of political and organizational environment, and that can then, if trouble or problems occur, tackle them.
And what about the other stakeholders that are not directly involved in that core team, as you just mentioned? Are they also easily on board for the change, or?
And we will see that over the course of the time. At the moment, when we got
Sure.
new people on, it was quite good. We convinced them on different levels to look into Odoo, to work with Odoo, to start with Odoo, and it was working fine. We will see over the course of the next months and years how we proceed. We are going to go live with 2 locations in January. That will be the first the first go live of entire locations of a couple of hundred employees, and then we further on. We go further on with that.
Perfect. And so we got a question from Furman. Do you have any practical examples of how Odoo helped OBS?
Of Odoo, how it helped, we of course use Odoo, of course, as well as our major system, and it helped us a lot. You cannot imagine, but we have up to now we have not one administrative worker in the office, and that is quite amazing. So the administrative work is done by different colleagues. And we have structured the process in a very smooth way, so that all the process from like quotation, sale order, invoice, delivery, timesheets, and everything of that is all done by the people. So we don't need somebody that is responsible for invoicing or for whatsoever. That is done amongst the team, which is quite amazing. We have now hired the first one that should a bit bundle this organization. So therefore, Odoo, the system Odoo, helped us, OBS, of course, a lot. And as we are fully dedicated to Odoo, of course, it helped us. Without Odoo, we would not exist. Yeah.
That is beautiful. And someone else is asking, what would be the added value from a client perspective, of course, what would be the added value of working with a partner like OBS?
Well, the added value is we have a very strong business focus. We don't come from a development background, even though we have probably now one of the best development teams worldwide, I would say, in Odoo. But our core focus is not development. Our core focus is business. I myself, I'm coming from the business world. I was actually, before entering Odoo, always on the other side, working with SAP implementations, always in the business. So I know quite good, I think, what a customer, what a business needs. And our entire processes, our entire services are focused on the business of our customers. And I think that is quite an added value. And what we do at the moment, especially for international companies, and especially as well then for companies that want to move from Odoo from SAP to Odoo, sorry, I think there we can really bring added value to them. And I mean, on top of that, we don't just want to implement software, or we want to improve with implementing the software. We want to improve the way you are working as a company. That's as well quite important, because it's not just to implement a software and then it's fine. No, with implementing modern software like Odoo, you can at the same time improve the processes, and we quite focus on that. So we have a couple of tough discussions. Me, myself, for example, as well with Dr. Kulve, we have sometimes tough discussions when we challenge our customers and say, well, look, can you not do it a bit different? There would be Odoo standard, and you don't have big disadvantages actually. And it's often a worthwhile discussion, even though it's rough. So what we don't do, we don't get just requirements and then program something. We never do that. We only have a look at the requirement. We have to understand them, and we challenge it. And if it makes sense, of course, we go into development and further processing. But we just don't just develop without having understood the business context. And that is for an organization quite important. So everybody who wants to implement Odoo, I can just propose to have a look at a partner that is really business oriented and not so much development oriented.
So does that mean that you would sometimes go for process reengineering instead of tweaking the system to match the requirements?
Yes, yeah. We try to do a process engineering while we implement the software, which is not easy. There's probably other companies that do process engineering at itself better than we, but we combine both. So we do process engineering under the focus of Odoo. So we know Odoo and we know how Odoo should work, and we try to work for any specific detail on Odoo standard. Doesn't mean that for all requirements we can use Odoo standard. No, Odoo is a very good development platform, so it's actually very easy to develop something in Odoo, and very nice as well. But we try to stick to Odoo standard for all single requirements as far as possible, and only when we see really makes sense to develop, then to develop something.
Perfect. And Victor asked, does the project have an end, or in your opinion, it's a continuous implementation?
Well, that depends really on the requirements of the customer. So normally we have a certain scope, and if this scope is like delivered, then it's for us, it's the project, and then we have continuous improvement. Sometimes we have as well the case that we have a multi implementation. So we start with a certain area, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and of course then it's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But we try to as well have a go live and then say, well, look, this is now the system we've implemented. That is the budget that we had. Here we are with the budget, and now we go into a kind of after sales service. Perhaps even an agreement if customers want, but if not, we just support them. So I think you have to put these milestones and you have to put these phases, because otherwise it's getting an continuous implementation. You always implement, yeah. So you have to stick there a bit to what the customer needs at the end.
Yeah, I think we still have time for one last question. Of course, projects are different. And what would you say the client customization, how long would you say a client customization take in order to be ready for operation? And what is like the range of time for an average project size implementation using more than 4 to 5 modules?
Oh, well, that is a long question,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
still difficult to answer. Because of course it depends on the size of the projects. I mean, we go live sometimes within a workshop, for example, with a CRM in 2 weeks or so, because CRM you can easily use, and if it's beneficial to the customers, we go immediately live. But the project we have discussed just in a talk, it's currently planned for 4 years. So 4-year project, but that depends really on the size. So from 2 weeks, I would say, to a couple of years.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot for your time, Tobias. Are you
You're welcome.
available for having an extended session, Q&A
Looking
session?
forward, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So just join the link, and then Tobias will be more than happy to take on your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.